What up? What up? What up? YouTube Live. How's it going, everybody? Wait, did I turn on the volume? Okay, there you go. All right. So happy Wednesday evening, January. What day is this? 16th? Is it? Man, lost track of the day. Yeah, I believe it's January 16. That's right, January 16. All right. So I am here to give you. Well, the reason is why I'm doing this. It's because I'm behind on Young Justice Outsiders. I did the review of Young Justice Outsiders episode 1, but this past weekend, as you all know, I was busy binge watching The Punisher season 2. Thank you, Marvel. Thank you, Netflix. So they granted me the screeners for that. By the way, The Punisher season 2 launches globally on Netflix this Friday, January 18th. I provided the review for you on Rama Screen Channel, so check it out there. It's no spoiler review. Uh, by the way, it's fantastic. Season 2 Punisher is awesome, badass to the bone, hardcore. And then, John Berthal is back with his animalistic approach and attitude. Love it, love it, love it. So that's why I did not get to watch Young Justice Outsiders episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, yes, if you don't know, they release 3 episodes per week or per Friday, every Friday. So uh, there'll be 3 new episodes this coming Friday, January 18th. So I'm finally caught up now. I'm finally caught up. I've watched those 5 new episodes, if you will. So I want to give you my thoughts about it. And of course, with all my Young Justice Outsiders episodes recap or reviews, video reviews, I will be spilling some spoilers. Not a lot, not the major ones, just some spoilers. This review is mainly for those of you who have also watched this show or this season. Remember, this is season 3 of Young Justice Outsiders, aka Young Justice. I'm sorry, season 3 of Young Justice series, aka Young Justice Outsiders. Season 2 was Invasion. Do you remember that? So, by the way, I got after this, I'm gonna watch the news. That's what I usually do in the evening. Once I'm done blogging and looking for a job and browsing and whatnot in the evening, after I did all my reviews and post everything on podcast, I go to the news and make sure I keep up to date with the current events because that's what I like to do. And I got to keep myself informed, well informed, not just informed. All right, so episode 2. Okay, let's uh let's dissect this. And I'm gonna try to talk as fast as I can here, so as to not waste too much time. The title is Royal We. Okay, so if you remember in a refresher, season 3, episode 1, basically Markovia has a crisis, and also there's this thing. There's a global crisis where meta kids with meta genes, I guess you can say meta kids, are being kidnapped and trafficked and experimented upon. And uh, the people who kidnap them activate the meta gene, that they have in their bodies, and activate that gene and use or transform these kids into weapons, into meta weapons, into these fiery meta creatures. So in episode 2, the continuation, we see Markovia uh, in the wake of the death or the murder of Markovia, king and queen. The prince is about to be coronated as the next crown king of Markovia, and the prince has a brother who actually is a good. Both brothers, the king, the prince and his brother, they're good people. They're actually good-hearted people. And remember, by this time, Dick Grayson has assembled his own team, going outside of the Justice League. Um, what's the word? Justice League organization. Hence the title, Outsiders. And so he forms his own team to crack down the mystery of this trafficking, of this kidnapping of meta kids, and it leads them to Markovia. And so I love it in this episode too. I have my notes here. I'm gonna make sure I don't forget. Okay. So in my notes, I mentioned that it's cool to see how Artemis and Dick Grayson, Nightwing, get to be the ones that kind of rocking. They're rocking the tuxedo and the nice gown. They go to the Markovia party for the coronation party. Meanwhile, Superboy and Black Lightning, they pretty much they don't get to be sleek and sharp. So they're flying with their super cycle, and basically they go on a stealth operation to infiltrate the lab. And make it long story short, um, one of those meta creatures encounters or attacks them on the behest of Vertigo, Count Vertigo. That's right, Vertigo shows up. How cool is that? I remember Vertigo was adapted into live action in the Arrow series, right? I believe I forgot the actor's name. There was Count Vertigo in the Arrow series, at least one of the seasons. Um, yeah, but it's cool to see Count Vertigo here. Um, and Superboy gets kidnapped, and the prince's brother discovers the evil plan of the lab under, with the kids being held in that pod and being, with their gene meta gene activated. So so the bad guys, including Vertigo, and apparently this dude, I forgot his name. Let me get it on my note here. He's supposed to be some kind of, I guess, Markovian chief of staff, maybe the fourth right hand man, and he's behind this too. And the reason is he hates meta people. He hates meta humans. But what's funny about that is that he has turned himself into a meta in order to fight other metas. So, oh, here it is. I have my note. So the prince's brother, his name is Brion Markov, and he is voiced by one of my favorite voice actors, Troy Baker, whom I had interviewed twice before. Twice? Three times. I've interviewed Troy Baker three times in the past. Two times at Comic Con, and one time at, I think, one of the Lego animated movie premieres. So come check out those videos at Rama Screen YouTube channel. So again, back to the story. Superboy gets held in that pod, and of course, well, there's a point in the show or in the episode when Black Lightning, Jefferson Pierce, dives into the water like free dive, right, off a cliff. And he goes in and he hits his back onto this rock. And it turns out the water is shallow. It's not deep. It's not one of those, you know, nice Apacoop, I don't know, Copacabana, no, one of those resort places where people jump off the cliff, and it's like, oh, that's nice. It's, because it's deep. No, it's not like that. It's so he hurt his back, and Artemis saves him. Oh, I forgot to mention in this episode, Artemis encounters a character who wears a hijab, and her name starts out as Halo, and she is a Markovian. She doesn't speak English very well at the beginning, and she was in the process of being buried alive by by a bunch of bigots. Apparently, these bigots also work for the lab that are experimenting on Markovians with meta gene. So Artemis saves her, and then Artemis saves Black Lightning, and then Artemis with Black Lightning and Halo come to save Superboy, and they destroy the lab. But outside, that lab, you would think that you would think that they'd be over with, right? That they'd be safe, that they'd be safe by then. But no, of course, Vertigo's still around. Vertigo and and his cronies, and of course the meta creature, the fiery meta creature, and then freaking A, man, holy crap, that whole sequence nearing the end of the episode where Black Lightning. There were times in this episode where he's reluctant. He doesn't want to fight because the last time he fight one of these creatures, he finds out that it's actually a little girl that got turned into this creature. So that guilt, pretty much like, oh my god, I can't get myself to even kick this because I don't know what he was before he turned into this. I might I might kill another, I don't know, boy or girl, if I do this. Um, but at one point, the creature kills Halo, and then Black Lightning's like, you know what? I've had enough of this. You're dealing with me now. Um, so that's what happens in episode 2, and it's. I mentioned to you in my review of episode 1. One of the things that I noticed is that uh they crank up they widen the boundaries as to what they are willing to show, graphic wise. you know um when Young Justice was on Cartoon Network, it was um it was bound to cartoon, whatever Cartoon Network allows or doesn't allow, it's bound to that. You can't go beyond that. Whereas now that it's on DC Universe, you can tell that they have a bit more freedom to, you know, push the envelope a little bit. And in this episode 2, and I'm not talking about just the violence aspect, which of course it does have in episode 2. I mean, dude, it shows when Halo's face, the girl, the with the hijab, I guess you could say the Muslim Markovian girl, um, when she gets her face burnt, holy crap! It's like the skeleton, like you actually see it. I mean, I don't. My point is that I don't think you had seen such graphic in Young Justice season 2 or 1. Um, but on top of that, you're right. Not just that. Um, as I said earlier, the whole thing with Black Lightning wrestling with um, the ethics of, deciding whether or not this fight is it right for me to engage in this fight? Is it wrong for me to engage in this fight? Those are very heavy adult themes that I don't think I have seen tackled previously or in previous Young Justice seasons. So that's also, I guess, one of the things that the writers now feel or can feel free to explore for the characters, and I think that's a good thing. Um, yeah, the whole Markovian thing, the conflict in Markovia in this episode 2, it sets up in a way that it introduces us to potential new members of Young Justice. Not the official Young Justice, but Young Justice outsiders, at least Dick Grayson's team. And we'll get to see that in episode 3. All right, so let's get to episode 3. By the way, I love it. I love how at the end of every episode, I don't know if you noticed this, but it ends with a shot of Dick Grayson's or Nightwing's. Oh, I want to say Superboy. It's not Dick Grayson's. Superboy's home. Yeah, Superboy's home. With his wolf. But it's on the outside, so you see a shot of the backyard, and it's like calm and soothing, and it's like in the evening where you can hear the cricket. So, and then you see the credits roll. I think there's some elevator music too in the background. I love that. I love that. It's so calming. By the way, I forgot to mention in my note here, the comic relief Gar. Beast Boy with his Space Trek show that looks like Star Trek. That puts a smile on my face. uh, I don't know which one's funnier, the Gar or the Beast Boy in this one, or the Gar and Beast Boy in the live action Titan series, because the one in live action Titan series also has its moments. All right, so in episode 3, um, so now we have new characters from the Markovia, because the prince's brother um, is not allowed to stay in Markovia anymore, because the prince's brother, because of that lab encounter, remember that I mentioned to you earlier, I believe, that the bad guys, including Vertigo, because the prince's brother discovers what they're doing with the kids, and so they knock him out, and they also experiment on his meta gene and turn him. So now he's a meta, he's a full-on meta, and so what Markovia has a law banning metas. And so the prince says, "I'm sorry, brother, I can't. I gotta honor my, the country's rule of law as the leader." And it's not like he wants to exile his own brother, but that's what has to be done, unfortunately. So some of the new characters is that brother. His name is, as I mentioned earlier, Breon Markov, voiced by Troy Baker. The other new character is the girl with the hijab, Halo, and she is voiced by, let me go check here, fantastic actress. She's also done other series like Voltron animated series. Oh, there you go, Zara Fazal. So there's Breon, there's Halo, and then there's more in the subsequent episode. But in episode 3, let me see double. Where's my note here? Uh, oh, that was episode 3. Okay, never mind. Maybe I guess I was talking about both episode 2 and 3. Yeah, I guess I got my notes all combined here. I went ahead of myself. My bad. My bad. But yeah, that's pretty much a review of episode 2 and 3. So episode 4 is what I'm supposed to be discussing now. Okay, let's see here. Where's my note? I want to make sure I don't mix my note. Okay. So what do the Young Justice members do with these people who are pretty much are now outcasts? Because Breon Markov is not allowed to stay in Markovia, and Halo, who herself is a Markovian, but she's a refugee basically. She's persecuted in Markovia. She was never really accepted in Markovia because, I guess, because of her religion, or her, being a meta, and her being different, her from a different culture. She's been bullied a lot. So now Young Justice, because they are bleeding heart liberals, so they take both Breon Markov and Halo in as, I guess you could say, house guests. So Halo lives with Will Harper and Artemis in their house, and Breon Markov lives with um, Miss Martian and Superboy in their house with the wolf. So episode 4 is basically, you're seeing these two characters, these two new characters, trying their best to assimilate, right? So this is not an easy process, because it's like fish out of the water, right? There are things that are like, whoa, they don't understand, why is the wolf always sleeping, or like, or sometimes Halo, because Halo is a meta, so sometimes she doesn't know how to control her power, and she displays her power publicly, and Artemis would occasionally have to say, hey, 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 don't do it right now in front of people. Let's tone it down a little bit. um so while they're trying to assimilate and figure out where we are in the society, Um, of course, Nightwing is still on that mission to bust down every trafficking of meta kids because it's not over yet. It's not over with just that one lab at the in Markovia. It's a bigger ring than just that. So Nightwing acquires the help or tries to acquire the help of Will Harper. By the way, before I go on, I gotta give a shout out to my friend Jeff. Jeff, who is also a fellow DC fan. I grew up a DC fan, and he reminded me last week. When I talk about him, I'm sorry, when I talked to him about Young Justice, and I mentioned to him, the whole Harper with Artemis living together, and I mentioned to him Roy Harper, but he corrected me. He said, "I think that's the clone. That's Will Harper, not Roy Harper." And he's right, Jeff. So Jeff, if you're listening or watching to this, you are correct, man. My memory is shoddy these days because I'm getting older, but you are correct. So this is not, Roy Harper. This is the clone, Will Harper, um, and he's now an owner of this business, a security firm um, called Bow and Arrow Security. What a fitting name! What a fitting name! And in this episode 4, titled Private Security, basically Nightwing comes and like, hey, can you help me bust down this trafficking thing that's been going around everywhere? And Will Harper says, okay, I'll help you. I'll help you in the night, because that's when you operate, right? As the apprentice of Batman all these years. So you're like the Dark Knight. So you operate at night. So in the daytime, how about you help me with my private security business? So um, this whole episode 4, a big chunk of it is them, all four of them, trying to, I don't know, maybe kind of install some kind of a security, but it gets interrupted by a bunch of bandits that try to steal their merchandise, the security firm merchandise. Um, on the way, so it provides for a pretty exciting car chase and fight sequences on top of a moving truck. It's like one of those, if you've been to a 101 highway, um, or Pacific Coast Highway by the beach, it's kind of like that. The scenery is like that. So pretty high speed, pretty intense. I love the whole thing, the whole scene. Um, and you know what I noticed though about this Young Justice season 3, or Young Justice Outsiders? The humor is even funnier this time around. I kid you not. Especially in this episode 4, Private Security, the way the characters kind of throw jabs at each other, you know, or being sarcastic or what have you. It's actually funny. I mean, the writing is pretty good as far as comedy goes, and the animation too. Some of the fights, the punches, they're really, really, what's the word I'm looking for here? You can see clearly the choreography of it all. It's actually well staged. So props to the director and the writers and the animators, especially in this episode 4. It's funny, man, just watching them fight off the bandits as they go on this high speed chase on this coastal highway by the ocean. It's great. It's entertaining. I'm amused the whole time. Uh, this episode 4, Private Security, is probably my favorite episode so far this season. So make sure you go check it out if you haven't done so. Let's see what else do I have in my notes here. So that's what happens in episode 4. Love it, enjoy it. Um, a very entertaining episode. Let's see what I have in my notes here. Okay, we'll go to episode 5. See if I can. All right. So, episode 5. This time, they go to another planet. Love it. Love it. Um, so, if you're wondering, the big overarching arc, the big story is the whole meta kids, the trafficking crime business thing. That's the big thing, right? It goes from Markovia to another ring, but trafficking, trying to take down the trafficking thing. That's the big overarching arc of this season. But of course, every episode has its own procedural feel to it, kind of like the live action Titan series. Do you remember that? Where the big story is all about Raven, and ultimately Trigon coming back. You know, the whole the the entire team trying to figure out how they deal with I guess, the prophesied impending apocalypse. But in each episode, there's some, I guess, procedural plot or little plot going on for each of the characters. Like for Dick Grayson, played by Brenton Thwaites. There's a couple of episodes dedicated to him. There's an episode dedicated to Corey. There's an episode dedicated to Wonder Girl. Do you remember that? And there's an episode dedicated to introducing Doom Patrol. Okay, so it's kind of like that. The format for Young Justice Outsiders, or Young Justice season 3. So there's the private security episode thing going on, and in this episode 5, um, they go to another planet. There's a conflict happening in. Excuse me. Let me just drink my water again. In the new Genesis, between the gods and the bugs, and so let me get my note here. And so Big Bear shows up. Big Bear says, "Hey, I need some Earthlings. I need some of the Young Justice members to help me out with this conflict in the New Genesis." So the only ones that can help are Miss Martian, and some of the younger Young Justice members. Well, including Kid Flash and Blue Beetle. So we get to see some of the, not the young adult one, because young adult we're talking about like Superboy and I don't know, Black Lightning or whatever, or or Barb, Bat Girl. But no, these are the younger people, and it's like, okay, we'll help you out. We'll help Miss Martian with this particular conflict. And so they go to New Genesis, and it it ultimately is revealed that the conflict is caused by none other than um, Miss Martian's own brother. I believe the name is Macomb Mars. So Macomb believes that, whereas, okay, so Miss Martian believes in love and peace, and she, of course, she's not a pacifist. She'll fight back if she has to, but she believes, Megan, or Miss Martian, believes that you can look for the good in everybody, in anybody, right? So if you surround yourself with people that you love and you love them back, just like her, she is surrounded by Justice League who cares about her, then you could be a better person, no matter what your past, or no matter what your background, or no matter where you're from, whatever pain you may have felt in the past, you can be a better person. Whereas Macomb Mars, Megan's brother, Miss Martian's brother, he can't get past that. The past that he shares with Miss Martian is a painful one. Miss Martian's, of course, experiences that too when they were kids, in that the Green Martians persecute them. So Macomb Mars believes that no, I don't believe that love can conquer all, love can defeat. What kind of mumbo jumbo kumbaya is that? No, the only way to the only way to go about it is to is through violence, is to fight back, is through power, is through conflict. So that's what he believes in. And at one point, Miss Martian, it seems that Miss Martian almost kind of gets through to him. You know, it's like almost you kind of get the sense like, oh, maybe she can change his mind. But no, that last minute he fools her. Turns out he is what you call TFG, which means too far gone. And so there's this big clash or collision between Miss Martian and her brother, Macam Mars. And so, because Macam is the person behind the whole um, problem that's going on in New Genesis, and so yeah, he's too far gone, man. He's not be. You can't save him. You know, he already made his choice. Basically, he's one of those guys. And in this episode 5, we are also introduced to a new character that's going to be joining the Young Justice. So we have Brion Markov, right? And then we have Halo, the girl with the hijab on. Excuse me. Ooh, I just had dinner. I apologize. And then we have in this episode 5, Forager. Forager is part of the bugs, the new bug. Um, and he's a good bug. he, he at one point he realizes that what the bugs are doing was terrible. It's like, oh my god, I don't want to be part of this. So he stops one of the bugs from hurting. The other bugs were in the process of hurting the Young Justice, and he kind of stops him. He kind of stops them. And so after the whole thing with Miss Martian defeating Macam, and Macam kind of goes away, Forger's like, oh, no, because everybody's like, no, Forger, you can't stay here because then you might get hurt. It's not safe for you here because you went up against your own kind, the bugs that were trying to hurt us. So they might come at you one of these days. So you have to come with us. And it's so sad. Forger's like, no, I don't want to go. This is my planet. This is my home. But he's like, okay, I understand why I have to go. And Miss Martian, I'm sorry, Miss Martian tells Forger, it's not forever, it's not for eternity. Just till just so we know that you can be safe to go back again to your planet. All right. Until things calm down, until things are pretty much secure here, you know, come with us until then. So we got Forager, we got Brion Markov, and we got Halo. And now we are in episode 6. I think we're making good time here. Yep. Now, episode 6. Here's what's cool about it. And I think if you have seen this episode, you would know why it is what's the word? Why this episode is so fascinating and so intriguing in particular. Because it starts out with the revelation that Nightwing, aka Dick Grayson, has been dating. Oh, where's my note? Is it here? Yeah. Nightwing, aka Dick Grayson, has been dating Barb. And Barb, by this point, is in her wheelchair. So you know what that means, right? For those of us DC fans, we remember that Barb, at least in the comic books or in the canon, the reason why she's in the wheelchair is because she gets hurt or paralyzed from the arc, the Killing Joke, I believe. The Joker did that to her. So the episode 6 starts out with Dick Grayson and Barb, in being romantic towards each other, and you see Barb is in a wheelchair. So it brings up the question, the $1,000,000 question. Hey, how come we don't see that whole thing with the Joker? How come they don't show that to us? because remember at the end of season two, um, Vandal Savage goes to Apocalypse to see Darkseid, and then boom, that's it, right? Curtains down, and then you see episode one of season three, and he goes to the meta kids trafficking thing going on. So I guess my question is: are they gonna go? Are they gonna show us some flashbacks one of these days as to maybe how the Joker actually caused um, or hurt Barbara? Are they gonna show flashbacks? Because that would be nice. That'd be pretty cool. Or maybe they're not gonna show that at all. Maybe they're just gonna assume that okay, you the fans know right what happened, so we're gonna leave it at that. We're not gonna explore that. We're just gonna move forward from that. So maybe that's what maybe that's what they've decided on. Um, and I don't know how I feel about that. Will you guys be okay that we're just gonna have to accept? Yeah, Barb's in a wheelchair now. I guess that's from the Killing Joke. But there's no Killing Joke sequence in the Young Justice series. and um, and then again, I remember like, well, we don't even see what happened to Vandal Savage, with Darkseid. So there's some things that apparently it seems that the writers for this new season, they just happen to decide, you know what, we're just gonna abandon this part. We're gonna move forward with this instead. Um, so that's the impression I'm getting. I don't know if you are cool with that, or maybe you demand to see more of, or you demand for them to, go back to Vandal Savage again, because that story hasn't finished. Or maybe you'll be maybe you are okay with just moving on. Maybe you're okay with just, you know what, we've had enough Vandal Savage in season two. Let's just, it's okay if we, he's dealing with Darkseid and we'll never see him again. We'll just move on. Maybe you're okay with that, and that's fine. Let me know what you think of that. So yeah, that's interesting. Very fascinating. The episode starts out with that, and episode six. Excuse me. Um, you see the continuation of, well, in episode five. I have to. I just forgot. Episode five. There are some training sequences involving Brion Markov and Halo. In episode six, um, you see the three new characters: Forager, Brion Markov, and Halo. They're kind of bonding, and of course, because they have something in common, which is because that they're they're outsiders to the Young Justice. Even this Young Justice themselves are outsiders to the official Young Justice. Uh, so because you remember, Dick Grayson is operating outside of the, um, I guess you could say, the Young Justice official parameters. So these three characters feel, they share something in common, so they're bonding, and in this episode, um, Brion also discovers that his sister, I believe, Tara, gets kidnapped by the League of Assassins. Of course, as you know, League of Assassins is supposed to be headed by Raj Al Ghul. So, they go. Well, the thing is, I forgot to mention that the Young Justice, they tell these three, they tell Brian and Forager and Halo to stay put, stay here. It's not safe for you to be out there because you have not controlled your powers yet. You are not in full control of your powers just yet, and you might hurt somebody else or yourself in the process. So stay put. We'll handle this. We'll handle Ra's al Ghul. But Brion Markov, throughout the episodes of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Brion Markov has a temper. He has a short fuse, man. He, not only because because he's pissed that he's not allowed to go back to his homeland Markovia because he's now a meta, but he's also pissed that because he can't control his powers as a meta. So he has a lot of reasons to be angry, which is justifiable. But that also makes him a liability if he were out to be in the field with the young justice. um Halo does not have anger problem, but she in her training she discovers that, because some of her powers or abilities include self healing, and she can also actually come back from the dead. It's fantastic. Holy crap. and and she can help other beings. She can heal other beings or other creatures as long as they are within the reach of healing. you know so, and she finds out that she has this force field. She can develop like a freaking magnetic force field, but if she that's only when she turns red. But she can also glow yellow, and I believe the other color is blue. And so she's trying to figure out, okay, if I turn, red, I can make a force field. So what can I do if I turn blue or yellow? What does this do? So she herself is not ready for the field. And of course, Forger is like, man, he's a lovable dude, man. He's like a naive bug, so curious, and he's so hungry. He's like, where are the apples? I want to eat. But he'd be willing to put himself out on the line for his he has a big heart. That's all I can say for now. Um, so because Brion Markov is like, no, my sister gets kidnapped, I gotta be out there too. So without the permission of the Young Justice, Brion, Halo, and Forager, they go out on their own transportation to find Raj Al Ghul, and that leads to a conflict and another action scene, and it leads to the revelation that apparently Raj Al Ghul is not in charge of the shadows anymore, which is pretty shocking to me. So that's a question I hope would get answered in the subsequent episodes. So okay, so that's what happens in episode 6. Um, sorry, let me give you this. All right. Okay, so overall, episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, 4 is my favorite. Funny humor in that one, the private security episode. But let's dig deeper. It's fascinating how Young Justice Outsiders, right? The title is Outsiders. It doesn't just apply to the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, Dick Grayson is operating outside of the Justice League or the official Young Justice, you know, parameters and rules. These are like we're forming our own team. We're doing our own thing. So hence outsiders. But it also applies to these 3 new characters: Forager, Halo / Violet. Her other name is Violet, and Brion Markov. And my goodness, dude, this season has some timely, relevant themes. Um, I'm not sure if it's intentional on the writer's part or the producer's part, but it's fascinating because it deals with bigotry. There's some flashback on how Halo's family was persecuted in Markovia because I guess they're Muslims. They wear hijabs, and Forager is persecuted by his fellow bugs. It's like his own kind because he's a good guy amongst the rest of them that are not good. And of course, Brion is like, oh, I'm a meta now, and meta is outlawed in Markovia. So the whole theme deals with bigotry and prejudice and racism and discrimination. It's some pretty timely, relevant theme, especially in our country today. That's very, very divisive, unfortunately. Um, so I would love to interview the writers or the producers of this season 3 and to see, like, hey, did you guys actually plan this to make the themes kind of like timely to what's going on in our society right now? Um, because there are moments where Halo or a Forger or Brayon felt insecure or they felt threatened. um they're like wondering like, oh, because I'm different, they're gonna go after me. And of course, whereas Artemis is, of course, is bleeding heart liberal. Artemis is like, no, no, you're not different, okay? you're like you're one of us, you're one of us. And so Young Justice really welcomes them. And they don't want to divide based on looks and powers and abilities. It's so cool how this season tries to tackle with those themes. And and I don't think it's very preachy. I don't think it hammers you in the head. I think it's and I don't think it's subtle either. I mean, it's so obvious, but it goes with the whole title Outsiders. And I think, you know, if they don't deal with those themes, then it would be, what's the word I'm looking for? Then the show would not be able would then the show would not be perceived as brave enough. So because they deal with these themes and they tackle them, um, I think it's pretty courageous, man. I know it's to see a DC show that deals with these themes of bigotry, prejudice, racism, and xenophobia. That's the word I was looking for too. Xenophobia. Um, it's informative, it's educational, it's enlightening. You know, I hope it can bring some positive impact on DC fans out there who may have some inclination towards prejudice or bigotry. Once they see the show, it's like, I guess it's not good to treat people just because they're different, or to treat people wrong just because they're different. It's not good to do that. So that's the big thing I notice. In addition to it being, uh, a lot funnier, the comedy, dude. I remember watching season 2, Young Justice Invasion, and there were times when it was just it just dragged, especially the whole thing with when Justice League was put on trial. It was so heavy and serious and almost barely a light mood moment. Of course, whenever the Flash or Green Lantern showed up, everything's kind of like funny a little bit. But other than that, it's like heavy, man. Whereas season 3, this one, Outsiders, they actually don't take themselves way too seriously at times, and that's good. That's good, especially with the whole Gar and space track thing. So yeah, it the drama is good when it arrives and it hits you just at the right amount, and then the comedy is also not too overbearing, and it's effective. It actually hits the target. It doesn't miss. So I think this has been a pretty good season so far. Season 3 of Young Justice. I can't wait to see some of the questions that I mentioned to you, or the questions that the episodes brought up. Hopefully they'll get revealed, or they'll get addressed, at least in the subsequent episodes, and I'll be there to give you my review, my thoughts about him. Of course, this Friday we'll have 3 more new episodes, so hopefully I'll be able to do them on Friday. But if this Friday I happen to be busy, I'll try to do it later this weekend. Either way, you'll have them. All right. So that's it. Now I gotta gotta watch the news. Make sure I keep myself up to date with what's going on in the world. And thank you so much for tuning in on this special live stream review of Young Justice Outsiders, episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you have seen the episodes, and you may disagree with some of my assessment in this review, or you have some further questions or some further thoughts, or maybe if you stumble upon some things that I said throughout this review that you're like, hey Rama, you got that fact wrong, that character is actually this character, not that, whatever, whatever, Just share your thoughts in the comment section below. Share them right here in the comment section below. And as always, subscribe to my channel, ring that bell, like, press that like button. All right. And help support this channel at patreon.com/ramascreen. That's patreon.com/ramascreen. As always, let's rock this.